Renegade Repairs. Fixing things in our family has led to a number of interesting situations as well. A couple of those situations are as follows. To begin with, there's nothing worse than a plugged kitchen sink, except maybe a plugged kitchen sink with no drain cleaner in the house. It was a crisis. The kind of crisis that makes you stare hopelessly at standing water, pretending that you understand plumbing, while secretly you're just praying that it'll magically fix itself. The magic wasn't happening. The sink remained stubbornly clogged. Dad, the ever-practical problem solver, had an immediate solution. Use the plunger. A reasonable solution, unless, of course, you're my youngest brother, Ben. Ben stared at Dad in horror, visibly repulsed at the idea, with his face twisted in disgust, his soul visibly rejecting the very thought of using what he had just dubbed the poo thing in the kitchen sink. "No way we're putting that poo thing in this sink," he declared, crossing his arms in righteous defiance. So he and Mom embarked on a noble quest. Determined to unclog the sink without the dreaded poo thing, they decided to try boiling water. No luck. They tried a coat hanger wire. Still clogged. They tried bleach. Not even a dent in the blockage. They tried literally everything short of hiring a plumber or summoning the ancient drain spirits. Meanwhile, after each failed attempt, Dad's voice could be heard from the living room. Perfectly calm, but increasingly smug. "Use the plunger." But no, they were determined. They were resourceful. They could outsmart this clog. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of kitchen sink warfare, Ben turned to Mom, head hanging low, utterly defeated, and muttered, "Get the poo thing." And so the dreaded tool of unspeakable filth was retrieved, and wouldn't you know it, it worked instantly. And they had to spend the next 10 minutes after that bleaching the sink. Another situation was when my brother-in-law, his water heater pilot light went out. He figured relighting the pilot light would be a simple task. A few matches, a little patience, no big deal, except that it wouldn't light. So he called Dad. Dad's advice was straightforward. You have to push down the dial and then light it. So my brother-in-law tried it again. Still nothing. So he called back. So Dad asked him, "Are you holding it down?" He said, "Yep, for 1 second." Dad said, "No, you have to hold it down." So a few minutes later, another call. Still no lighting of the pilot light. Dad sighed and went over to the house to investigate. He proudly demonstrated the technique that he was using and why it wasn't working. Dad looked and watched, been pressing down the dial for about 20 seconds before releasing it and attempting to light the pilot. Now, for anyone who's unfamiliar with how this works, releasing the dial shuts off the gas completely if the sensor doesn't detect a flame. So yeah, it was never going to light. Dad calmly held the dial down and lit the pilot light instantly. My brother-in-law, watching this error fully dawn on him, sighed deeply and muttered, "I'm never going to live this down, am I?" Dad, ever honest, smiled and said, "I doubt it." A third instance would be, really, I'm going to call it Dad versus the toaster. Dad never had a ability to hold back his frustrations, especially when it came to fixing things. Mom, however, decided that now the kids were getting older, it was perhaps time for Dad to set a better example when it came to colorful language during repairs. But Dad believed that no bolt or screw could be removed without a little verbal encouragement. Dad, being a dedicated family man, agreed to make the effort, which led to the infamous toaster incident. Our toaster is broken, and Dad sits at the kitchen table, surrounded by tools, determined to fix it, without his usual symphony of expletives. The house was buzzing with activity, kids getting snacks, others doing homework, when suddenly Dad's tiny screwdriver slipped and he scuffed his knuckles. Silence. Everyone froze. Dad mumbled something incoherent and kept his head down and continued. Okay, this was fine. Wasn't normal, but it was fine. Then came a small screw that had to go in, and it refused to cooperate with Dad. The screwdriver slipped again. The tension in the room rose. A few more failed attempts, and then it happened. The screwdriver slipped one too many times. Dad raised his head to the sky. squeezed his eyes shut, visibly battling his instincts, took a deep breath, and Mom quickly jumped in. Jerry, stay strong. And then, in the most gruff, frustrated voice imaginable, he suddenly blurted out, "Heck darn poop!" There was a brief moment of silence, and then the entire family lost it. Mom was laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. The kids were gasping for breath, rolling on the floor in laughter, unable to recover. Dad sat stone-faced for a good 5 seconds before finally declaring, "See, it doesn't work," and then proceeding to curse a blue streak in further frustration, which only made everyone laugh even harder. Even Dad had to admit defeat and a little chuckle. Sometimes you just can't win. I hope you enjoyed my stories about our follies of fixing. Have you had any instances in your family where trying to fix something went terribly wrong? Put them in the comments. Let everybody else have a chance to smile from the same stories. Take a minute and reach down and move that mouse to click on the subscribe button if you don't mind as well. That really helps me out. See you next time.